What should you expect when you go to OCD group therapy? Stick around to find out. Hi friends, my name is Claire and this is my channel, Woodshed Theory. Here, I make content about what it is like to live as an adult on the autism spectrum and whatever else feels good to me. So if that sounds good to you, or if you're feeling particularly gracious today, and I hope that you are, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell. I almost forgot to mention that sometimes I put out more than one video a week. Click the like, click the like. If you notice, my hairline is dyed green. I just dyed my hair and then I went for a long walk with a hat on. So the dye has stained my forehead. That's all. Not turning into a frog. Ribbit. In my last video, I've requested that people help me out by sharing what they'd like me to talk about on my channel. And someone requested that I go into what it was like to go to group therapy for OCD sufferers. I think it's a great thing to talk about because when I first got into group therapy for OCD, I did not know what to expect and I was terrified. According to my doctor and some things that I've read, OCD group therapy is one of the best treatments for OCD symptoms. So today I'll talk about what was my original experience with the therapy. I'll walk you through what a normal therapy session looks like if you're getting ready to go to one. And I'll talk about how OCD group therapy changed my life in a good way. By the time I got treatment for my OCD, things were very, very bad for me. I had symptoms since I was a young child and had always just figured out a way to push through. My intrusive thoughts and compulsions pretty much happened all day, every day. It was hard not to have them. They were a part of my life and I was scared about sharing that part of my life with anyone, even the doctor. So people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, they rarely try and seek treatment for it because the intrusive thoughts that go along with OCD are intense, to say the least. Thinking or talking with people about your OCD when you have really terrible symptoms, untreated symptoms, is scary. You might feel like if you confess your intrusive thoughts to other people, that they will not understand and maybe put you in jail. You might think that you're a bad person. Talking about it brings up a lot of anxiety and it can be really scary. So the idea of going to group therapy was terrifying to me. The first several times I went to group therapy, I was a mess. I couldn't talk about my symptoms without my throat closing and crying. I had been on medication for a little while, which helped a little bit. It helped me think clearly enough to be able to go into a group setting. But the thought of talking about this in front of all these people was scary. I couldn't even imagine or fathom that I would talk out loud about things that were tied to my OCD. So that's how I felt when I first showed up to OCD group therapy. Now, if you're about to go to OCD group therapy for the first time, I can't guarantee that your experience will be exactly like mine, but I thought it might be a good idea to go through what to expect when you're at OCD group therapy. After your therapist or doctor has shown up, they'll usually take everyone who's in the group back into a meeting room where you can be alone and it's private. After everyone sits and gets settled down, the doctor will usually go through the list of rules and the disclosures about being in group therapy. They might go over the privacy aspect of group therapy, not sharing what you're hearing in the group from people with other people. How funny, my friend from OCD group just texted me while I'm filming this, so hi. The doctor will go over different policies of your healthcare. Most likely will say something like, everything that you talk about there is supposed to be private. The only time that the doctor would step in and do anything about what you were sharing would be if you were admitting to hurting someone, whether it be a child, an elderly person, any kind of abuse. After the shop talk is over, in my group, we took turns each sharing about our week. And we would talk about what OCD symptoms we were having, what that looked like during our week, the struggles we were having, but more importantly, the victories that we were having, how we did on our homework from the week before. We usually use this time to encourage one another, clap for one another, cry with one another. Following the group introduction where everyone says how they're doing that week, in my group we went into our weekly lesson. The length of this lesson usually depended on how long it took us to get through the group sharing part, but usually the lesson was around 30 to 40 minutes, where we discussed as a group basically different treatments and information about OCD. Basically, we went through a OCD curriculum. You'd start by talking about what is OCD, what isn't OCD. We talked about, different thought distortions, meditation methods, breathing exercises, ways to confront your intrusive thoughts and compulsions. We would walk through examples of how to confront OCD compulsions and intrusive thoughts. So really, it's an amazing curriculum because when you sit through it the first time, as opposed to sitting through it this fourth time. I went to this course for about 2 years in total, and I'm not sure how many times we went through the list of curriculum, but every time I went through it, I heard something different because every time I went through it, I was at a different point in my OCD treatment. So the first time I went through the curriculum, it was a lot of learning new things and being shocked at them and not knowing how I couldn't have known this earlier, or getting over the anxiety about talking about it. And after you go through the program a few times, or the curriculum a few times, you start to be able to hear new things and embrace new things more. For example, the first time we talked about perfectionism in that group, my response was, I'm a perfectionist and it serves me. I love being a perfectionist, it's part of my life, and I would never leave that behavior. Fast forward to hearing that several times, and now I understand that perfectionism wasn't serving me at all, and it was a reaction to my OCD symptoms in an attempt to control the environment around me. I might have mentioned that the curriculum was also interactive, so the doctor in charge would lead the entire group through different exercises, ask questions, write things on the whiteboard, make lists, basically like a general classroom situation, but everyone's sitting in a circle. During this time, we might get flyers or handouts. I know that I like to take notes, especially early on when it was all new information for me. After lesson time was over, we would move on to transitioning out of the meeting by going around again to each person and talking about what we wanted to accomplish OCD-wise over the next week. So that goal could be anything from, this is my first time here, my goal this week is to just think about my OCD, think about what's bothering me, and get a grip on where I am baseline, all the way to what I consider the more advanced stuff where you are feeling a relief from your symptoms to an extent. You're able to see and understand OCD when it's happening, and because of that awareness, you're able to do things to help yourself in those moments. Depending on where you are in the program will depend on what your homework is. If you're somebody who has outward compulsions, perhaps your homework for the week would be not double checking the locks on your door before you left home. I mean, it could be anything, whatever you struggle with OCD wise. Maybe walking in a public park on public grass because you're afraid of the germs. So there can be a lot of different things. OCD doesn't look one way, but this was our opportunity to talk about what we were going to do in the next week and kind of be living what we were learning in group. So what did I like about going to OCD group therapy? I'll say that it was terrifying to confront myself like that, but one of the best decisions and things I ever did, and I'm so happy that I was able to go to a group like that, even though I was terrified at the beginning, to talk about what I was experiencing. Some of the reasons that I thought it was a good idea: one, everyone is in a different spot in their journey in the group. So it might be your first day there, but it might be somebody else's 100th time there. Or maybe they went through the program and now they're back. So everyone is in a different place in their OCD journey. And it's actually helpful to see that, because when you're really struggling and you see somebody who has decided to graduate from the group because they've had a relief in symptoms, or they feel like they can start to handle the symptoms on their own or with less support, it can be really encouraging to know that that's possible when it doesn't seem possible. The other thing I loved about group therapy is getting to know other people with OCD. One of the reasons they say that OCD group therapy is the best way to go is because OCD is a very secretive, enclosed, anxiety-driven, well, it's an anxiety disorder. And people who have it, they don't want to talk about it. They might not even want to do research on it or look it up because that causes anxiety. There's so many reasons. So to start to be around people, other people who are going through the exact same thing that you are, or having the same thoughts that you are, and are under the same distress that you are, that is a really powerful thing and can really make you feel included. It can make you feel seen. And for me, the biggest thing it helped with was me being able to finally see that my OCD was an illness and it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault that I had OCD. I always figured it was because of something I did. And I was able to learn that no, I have OCD and it's an illness, and I could look at it from a scientific perspective then, as opposed to putting it all back on myself. And the best part, of course, is that we confronted our illness together as a group. And I, to this day, still have a very close friend that I met in that group. And we keep in touch. And when we're having a terrible time, we're able to support each other without giving each other reassurance, because we know how to handle our OCD symptoms now. So I'm really impressed with what OCD group therapy has given me. I know that this wasn't fully explanatory about what you would learn in OCD group therapy, but I hope that it was helpful for anyone who might be going to group therapy for the first time for OCD and they're terrified like I was, to know what to expect from those meetings. And I'm also here to tell you that it works if you work. What that means is that you can take medication for OCD, but it is very treatment resistant. So the medication can help reduce your symptoms, but you're going to get the most out of therapy. Learning behavioral techniques and mindfulness and all of that, just, it saved me. And I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful for everyone who was in that group who really listened and understood me. And I just suggest it. Anyone who's suffering with OCD, I feel like could really benefit. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions about group therapy that I didn't get into, I mean, it's a big topic, go ahead and leave them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends.